Hello everyone, it's Mark and welcome back. In this video I want to talk to you about the 5 options or 5 choices you have when dealing with a loved one who has substance use and or mental illness. So, choice number 1 is voluntary treatment. If your loved one is willing to go to treatment, is willing to acknowledge that they need help, and is willing to stay long enough in treatment so they can experience the miracle of recovery, then you and I probably don't need to have a conversation. So if they're going to go to treatment, they're going to follow the aftercare program, and they're going to learn the skills that are necessary so they don't relapse, then great. Then you and I don't need to talk, and I'm very happy for you. So that's number 1. Number 2 is involuntary treatment. What happens if your loved one is not willing to go to treatment? What happens if they've been to treatment and never stay long enough so they can experience the miracle of recovery? Perhaps they've been to multiple treatment centers. Perhaps you've taken multiple trips to the emergency room with them after they've overdosed. Okay? In that case, it's clear they're not able to make that decision to go to treatment at least long enough so they can experience the miracle of recovery. And so there are a couple of tools that we use, such as the Marchman Act, such as guardianship, and sometimes both of those together, that will enable you, which will empower you to make the decision for your loved one that they clearly can't make, okay? So that you can get them into treatment and keep them there long enough so they can experience the miracle of recovery. So that's number 2. Number 3, the state makes the decision for you. What do I mean by that? So what I'm talking about is Florida's Baker Act. And we get a lot of calls from people who call me up and say, Mark, I want you to Baker Act my loved one because they need help. And my response to them is that unless it's an emergency, in which case you should definitely call 911, don't use the Baker Act. Why? Because the Baker Act is not a treatment statute. It's a statute that is designed only for emergency stabilization. And so if you go ahead and you either have law enforcement Baker Act your loved one, or if you go to the courthouse and you Baker Act your loved one, or if they end up in the emergency room and the doctor there Baker Acts your loved one, what's basically happened is that the state of Florida has taken care, custody, and control of your loved one. And that means you're not going to be making any decisions for them, potentially for a significant period of time. They won't be making any decisions for themselves either. So don't confuse the Baker Act with perhaps the Marchman Act or even guardianship. It's not a treatment statute. But here's the rub, okay? If your loved one is having issues, especially with mental illness, where they potentially are a risk to themselves or somebody else, if they've threatened to commit suicide, there's going to be a certain point in time where the state says, look, family, spouse, child, whatever it is, you've had ample opportunity to fix this thing and deal with it, and you haven't done it. And so guess what? We're going to do it for you. And when we're done, we'll let you know. But meanwhile, we're in control, and we're going to take care of the situation. That's a dilemma that you don't want to be faced with. And look, if your loved one gets Baker Acted and they're being held illegally or unlawfully, that's a conversation I want to have with you. But please don't use the Baker Act unless it's an emergency, in which case you should call 911, because it's not for treatment. But it can happen if you don't take care of the problem soon enough. Choice number 4 is prison. That's right. People with substance use and mental illness tend to make really silly decisions, okay? And again, it's because the drugs, it's because the alcohol, the mental illness is really running the show here. Your loved one's not in control of the situation. Their illness is. And as a result, they tend to make decisions which you and I would consider objectively unreasonable. In other words, we wouldn't make those decisions, but we don't understand why they are. Why are they driving drunk? Why are they buying drugs on the street? Why are they stealing things? Why are they stealing things from us? Okay, so sometimes the person ends up in prison. And that's a dilemma that you don't want to be faced with, because at some point they'll do something so heinous that you won't be able to get them out. Or they'll commit so many crimes that the state just says, look, we're done. We're going to lock them up, and we're going to lock them up as long as we can. And here in Florida, the legislative mandate is to punish first and to rehabilitate second. So here in Florida, we like to punish. And when I say we, I mean the state. The state likes to punish people. And as far as drugs are concerned, I can tell you from speaking to clients that your loved one will have much more access to drugs in prison than they likely would have done on the street. Okay, so you don't want them going to prison. The 5th choice, and the one that you want the least, is the morgue. That's right, dead. Okay, drugs kill people. Okay, and I don't say that tongue in cheek, But, sort of when I was, in my teens growing up and I had friends who smoked marijuana, that's not the marijuana of today. Okay, the drugs of today are laced with fentanyl, which is this sort of drug that's coming out of China, which is significantly more powerful than the drug itself. And the idea is it's cheap and it causes a really, really big high, but it also kills people, and it kills a lot of people, and it will kill your loved one if they are using fentanyl-laced drugs. So obviously we don't want them doing that. So again, look, you have 5 choices. Okay, I'm happy to discuss all of them with you. But what I would tell you is if your loved one is not willing to go to treatment, then let's talk about how to get them there so they don't end up in prison, so they don't end up as a ward of the state, and worse yet, God forbid, they don't end up dead. In any event, with that said, thanks for listening in. Until the next video, take care.